Welcome to Season 2 of the Buzzbubble. I want to thank the thousands of viewers and my fantastic guests who made Season 1 a tremendous success. Just a year ago, I sat with Alex Bogusky for the first episode of the Buzzbubble, among hundreds of Crispin Porter and Bogusky employees. So much has happened since that afternoon when we chatted in his office in Boulder. Fast forward to now, and Alex and I recently sat on the front porch of his Fearless Cottage, where he and less than a handful of fearless insurgents are embarking on a completely new journey. In the short time since our first meeting, he started his own TV show, left CP+B to become Chief Creative Insurgent at NBC, then left the ad business altogether in a move that shocked the entire ad world. Then Fast Company bashes him just 2 years after making him their cover boy. I talk about all that and much more with a guy whom I consider one of the greatest modern ad men of our time. Join me as we climb into the head of Alex Bogusky right now. Alex, thanks so much for climbing back into the Buzzbubble with me a year later, and a few things have happened in that past year since we got together.
It's been a year, huh?
It's been a year, almost to the day. We're
really?
about a week, yeah. And since we were sitting in your office up at CP+B.
Crazy year.
Yeah, crazy year, but I wanted to get to the important stuff first and get that out of the way. Your 14-year-old's going into high school.
Yeah, he just started.
What's that about? Talk about a dose of perspective, you know, all this other stuff going on, and then boom, you know.
Yeah.
These are the big things that are going on.
You know, being a parent is this trying to decide, you know, how much help they need and how much you need to let go. And it's an interesting balance. It was fun, you know, he just started high school, and we rode right down this creek path to his high school. And as we got closer, we kind of talked about it beforehand that we wouldn't be shaking hands or anything, you know. And the first day I dropped him off, he was like, kind of turned around and was like, "See ya," right? But it was pretty far away, and I
Right out of the cool zone.
We were deep in the cool zone. There were some kids smoking, like right at, you know. I was like, this is not a place for us to have a long goodbye, and so then I looped around and left. And then the next day I dropped him off. He didn't even turn his head. As he said, I just heard a faint "see ya." Yeah. And he's a very sweet, affectionate kid. But you know, he's leaving. He's leaving the nest, and that's, you know, that's the process. It's supposed to happen that way. But no one. It's like all things parenting. No one really gives you a very good manual.
No.
Right.
And it just happens. My oldest is going into high school in a couple of weeks, and going to get on the bus, and you know, we'll see what happens. And you know, you build them and model them as best you can, and then you set them free to do what you.
But it's a painful process to let go, right? I dropped him off this morning, and we weren't on bikes, so I know he's walking home. And I was thinking about it, like he's going to walk home, which is longer and it's different. He's kind of got to figure out how to get back, and when he gets back, he'll be a different person. He'll have relied on a different, you know, skill set. And
one of the conferences you were speaking about, you were talking about how kids are so much more well-equipped to adapt now. And you also mentioned to me once that we're pretty much hit our peak at 12.
Well,
hope you didn't tell him that.
That's what happened to me. But he seems to still be growing. You know, I was somewhat, I don't know, stunted, I guess, that I was able to reach my peak at 12.
So it's I gotta say, it's so odd, you know, this is right after the Fast Company article, and that, you know, the things you become vilified, amongst others, for wearing big watches, which I joined you on that.
I didn't catch that part where I was, but in general, there was towards the end, yeah, there were a couple things. One is I might be a sociopath, you know. That, you know, I didn't expect that.
Yeah.
But
as you said, context is everything, and it was not quite.
Well, no, I mean, yeah, the context was left out, but I wouldn't expect them to like kind of go there. It seemed further to create controversy than I thought they would go, because there's plenty of controversy within the actual story. But what I thought was kind of poetic about the whole thing was that it started with, I've got that quote from Mother Teresa at the beginning. It's great, and they used it in the story. It's in the cottage, and they used it in the story. And then she just keeps saying, you know, if you do this, people may do that, and if you do this, people may do that. Help them anyway. She says that over and over, help them anyway. And at the same time they sent me the story, Fast Company said, hey, we're having this conference. and we'd love you to come and be on a panel. And part of me is like, did you just read the thing that, right? But you know, help them anyway. And so I think the story winds up to be a good challenge for me. It took a day and a half to digest, maybe longer.
I bet.
But I've spent
so unexpected, and literally, like, as I'm reading the story, nice, you know, here we are at the cottage, cup of tea, and then.
But it's not going to sell any. It's not going to sell any magazines, right? I mean, controversy and Schadenfreude. Do you know the term Schadenfreude? No. It's a German word for someone else's suffering, and leave it to the Germans to have a name for it. But
certain kinds of suffering.
But Americans are pretty good at it. We definitely delight in the so it works and so I can be philosophical about it. But the first it was when I first read it, it was a little bit like swallowing a hand grenade. Was kind of the feeling.
For me, it was odd in so many levels. And then in the time we spent together last year, and then I saw you at the book release, and all the things that you lean towards are. One of the things you said that stuck with me is like, don't go to create a new truth about a parody product. Go change a product to create a new product that you can create a valid truth about and advertise based on that. And then for them to kind of throw this at, especially not at just your history, but what you're trying to do now, and kind of, as I may say tongue-in-cheek, wield your superpower marketing sword for good in the world today, which it's a wonderful next chapter, I thought.
There's a reason for it, though. I mean, there was a reason the story came out like that, and I can learn from it in different ways. And we have expectations for what we'd like. We'd like to do something, and then we'd like to see this kind of result. It doesn't always work out that way. You put forward the best intentions you can into something, and there are different kinds of results that occur, and I think sometimes it's beyond us to really understand that relationship exactly.
Especially at the time.
I mean, your first reaction, if you read something negative, and I've been in the business long enough that I've read lots of negative things, right? And some of it gets personal. Your first reaction always is, all right, well, forget it. Like, I quit. I'm done. I don't want to help anyone anymore. I don't want to do anything anymore.
Good deed.
Good deeds, bad. I don't want to do any deeds. I'm done with deeds, and that's your first reaction. But that would be the wrong thing, right?
Yeah, right.
I think the challenge is, can you go back and say, okay, what were my intentions? Let me just make sure that those are all the best that I can put forward, and then start, keep going.
Yeah, and I think the Fearless Cottage is such a materialization of that, putting it like, okay, what does it mean? That's my next question.
Yeah.
The idea of fear controls us so much, and maybe get into the derivation. I guess, start it with the show, Fearless Q&A, and then the cottage, and what everybody's kind of wondering, what's it about?
Me too.
And what are you? Well, yeah.
Me too. We named the show Fearless just because we didn't really have a name, and people had described a lot of our efforts as being fearless, and I've always kept an eye on fear and tried to mitigate fear in the work and in the relationships. Anytime I saw it creep in, it's bad for creativity. Sure. I mean, you have clients.
Yeah.
If they're afraid, you're not going to do anything good. Right. You're not going to do the right thing. You're not going to do anything. If the creatives are afraid,
they won't make something great.
No, they won't make something good. So fear and creativity just have that sort of relationship, and so I am not fearless. It's fearless, because we all have fear. I say fearless too, but it's fearless really is the idea. We all have it, and there are tactics and ways to support each other and mitigate it. And those that do that well, I think, are in a better position to do anything creative, whether it's just making a television commercial. I shouldn't say just, that's a hard thing to do.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, if it's making a television commercial or if it's launching a new business, both. I see fear screwing up more things than not.
It really is amazing, you let go and it stops running.
That's it for part 1 with Alex Bogusky at the Fearless Cottage on the Buzzbubble. Tune in next week for part 2.